everyone, so if you were a viewer of my previous channel you will have seen this video before. This is basically me sitting component 1 under timed conditions. You'll be able to access my answer through a link in the description box below, so make sure you check it out. But this is basically me sitting down doing this exam as you will with the correct timing so that you can see how long I am spending on each of the questions, and I narrate a little bit to you as well as we go along. Hopefully you guys find it useful. As always, if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the button below, and any questions that you have, pop them in the comments section so that I can help you when it comes to your exams in the summer. Hi everyone, welcome to another video. So first of all, I'm really sorry that this video is going up so late, but this has taken me a huge amount of time to record compared to the normal videos, which are just me sort of working from a PowerPoint and using sort of screen recording software. For this one, I've actually had to time myself doing the essay, which I'll come on to in sort of more detail in just a second. And then I've had to put the timer over the top of it, record the timer so that that's on there for you guys. I've had to then edit it so that it's got my narration over the top of it. I'm then going to have to edit it so that I can fit this bit into it as well. So all in all, it's taken me quite a long time because obviously, as I mentioned before, I don't have a sort of YouTuber setup. This is just me recording it using what equipment I do have. So how is this going to work then? So I'm going to actually sit the component 1 exam that you guys are going to take in about a week's time. This is not the actual exam that you are going to get on the 3rd of June. Let me just put that out there. This is one that I created in about 15 minutes worth of time this morning. Nobody knows what questions are going to come up for you guys on the 3rd of June. What you will have though, for those of you who don't know, is that you are going to have access to those set products for component 1 section A. Now I don't actually use those in this example, partly because I've been through them so often with my year 10s, with my year 11s, that I sort of know them by heart anyway, but also because in your exam, although you're going to have access to them, they're going to be clean copies, and imagine what a lot of centres will have done is laminated them so that they can keep them clean and keep reusing them, so you won't actually be able to write on them. Now your exam could be on any of the products for component 1 section A and B, I should have put in there as well. So we don't know whether it's going to be film posters or magazines or newspapers or the Archers or Pokemon Go. We've got no idea what is going to come up on your exam. Obviously there are sample assessment materials that you guys can access on the Educast website, but we don't actually know what is going to come up for you guys. So what I did this morning is I took those sample assessment materials. I realised that we couldn't use those for this timed exam because I've been using those questions in my videos, but I took those questions and basically wrote this in about 15 minutes. So as you can see, if you get the sample assessment materials up and you have a look at those compared to this, it's virtually written word for word. All I've done is replace certain terms. And this is, I figured actually that this is kind of useful in a way for you guys because it shows how you can create your own exam questions just using the sample assessment materials and changing the different text that you're looking at. So obviously for question 1, I've based mine on Pride, but this one is based on the Quality Street advert, I believe, in the sample assessment materials. Now for this first question, what I've done is merged all 3 bullet points together to give you a slightly different example of the sort of question you might get. So here I've made it 15 marks for one question rather than splitting it into 3 sets of 5. I've also forgot to mention that the very last question is 25 marks, but you guys should know that anyway. And then for section B, I've included these as well. So again, they are virtually word for word for the sample assessment materials. I've just changed the product that we're using. So instead of looking at Pokemon Go, or I think it was film posters for media industries, I've changed it to the Archers and then put the other one as film posters. So you can do that yourself, and it's very, very simple. It's very easy to do that. I will link you to these questions in the description box because I've had a request from one of you to sort of give you the opportunity to pause the video either on the previous screen or on this one or at this point so that you can have a go at answering these yourself before seeing my answers and the way that I tackle this exam. So that's why I've sort of put this here. The resource that I use to compare to, by the way, is this one. So if you want to, pause the video at this point and then have a look at my answers. A link to my answers is also going to be in the description box as well. But basically, that's it. I'm now going to sit and tackle this paper for an hour and a half for you guys. Doesn't mean that the video is going to be an hour and a half. Feel like I should just stress that. But yeah, I'm going to sit and do this for an hour and a half. Okay, so I've got everything set up as pretty much as you would have it in your exam. So I've got black pen, spare back pen, highlighters, I've got my question paper and my resource. Obviously you guys would have these all printed together, they'd be in some sort of booklet, but I literally made these up about 15 minutes ago, so I've just printed these out. Obviously this is not going to be exactly the same as you would have it in an exam. I do have a dog and a cat wandering around, so they may interfere with things. So I'm going to set a few ground rules, which is that if at any point I have to go and deal with anything like the dog, the cat, people at the door, that sort of stuff, I'm actually going to be timing myself on my phone, and I'll pause it and then start the timer again. I'll try and show you guys that I've paused it as well so that you can see that, because I am going to stick to the 1 hour 30 minutes. So as you can see, I've got that all set up now. So let's get started. Okay, so you can see that the first thing I've done is that I've highlighted the keywords of the question, and I'm just making notes on the sort of things that I could mention when it comes to media language and pride in particular. Now, I'm not using any of the resources that you will have on the desk with you in your exam, mostly because I haven't got the energy or the ink to print out all of that pack just for this video, and I've done them enough that I sort of know them by heart, but you will have that section A pack. Now, it's really useful to highlight the keywords of the question because it means that you stay on track, and that's something that I've been getting into the habit of when I've been practicing English with my classes at school, and I think that's really useful to do here. And you'll see that I use different colours for different questions as well, just so that it keeps that sort of fresh as I go through. Now, that first question, I've lumped all of those bullet points together, basically because I was rereading the specification and the new revision guide that's been released, and they did say that you might have steps, but you might not. So if you don't, and you've got those 3 bullet points all lumped together, pick 3 parts of media language. So here I've picked codes and conventions, layout and design, and camera angles, and just do 3 paragraphs the same way that you would as we've practiced together. I'm not too fussed about whether or not I get theories in here. If I can, then that's fantastic, but if not, as long as I've got my terminology in there and I'm clearly relating it to the focus of the question, which is pride and how those meanings are created, then that's all I'm really worried about here. So this should give you a really good idea of how long your answer should be, because you can sort of judge it based on my handwriting, and I will upload my answers as a sort of PDF so that you can download them, you can have a look at them, you can annotate them, highlight them, all that sort of thing, and it should give you an idea based on my handwriting size how much you should be writing for that first question. Obviously, remember that if this had been split into steps, 1A, B and C, that you would label 1A, 1B, 1C in your answer book. If you have an answer book, if they give it to you with the sort of spaces for the answers, then you will obviously be able to just fill those in as necessary. So here you can see that I've changed colour. I'm picking out the key parts of the question. Here it was looking at political context, and I initially put down the political party that the papers support and bias as a point, and then I realised that those two were probably very, very closely related, so I might want to make that 1 point. Now, obviously, because this is only a 5-mark question, you're not going to be expected to write as much as you did for the very first question. But I think because it was political context that I'd sort of created and newspapers, it gave me loads to talk about. So I've probably spent too long on this question. Although, given that you'll see at the end that I'd got time left over, it might be that that's one of the ways that I wanted to use my additional time, is by filling in perhaps more of the questions from section A, because you obviously get more marks for section A than you do for section B. Now, I initially as well in this paragraph put in an example from the Daily Express. If I'd just left it at the Daily Express, I wouldn't have gained any marks. But because I then mentioned the Sun later on, I got more marks in that sense. Because obviously that hits the part of the question. If you don't mention the Sun, then if it says to do so in the question, if you don't mention it, you won't get any marks. Here I've moved on to 2B and I'm annotating the resource. It does advise you that you spend about 10 minutes annotating the resource, and I kept checking my timer to work out how many minutes I should have had, and I think at this point I realised that I hadn't got enough time to continue planning. So again, obviously because I had time left over at the end, I sort of went through section B very quickly. I could have spent more time on that section planning. And you'll see that not only did I highlight the keywords of the question and annotated the resource as well, but I've also made a little plan here where I've split down what were the similarities, what were the differences, and I've made sure that that's equal and even so that I'm hitting all of those bullet points. I decided to pick a different advert than food to compare to Quality Street, just because I really don't know what they're going to give you. They could give you absolutely anything to compare to. And while it seems fairly obvious that if you get a magazine like Pride mentioned in the question, you're going to have another female magazine, for advertisement, it could be anything, just the same as film poster could be any sort of genre. So I thought I'd try and mix it up a little bit by picking something that perhaps on the surface wasn't as relatable. And this, like, I know you guys, or certainly those of you who I teach, I know that you come out of your exams going, oh, my hand is killing me. Yeah, I do appreciate that, because I think at this point my hand really started to cramp up. I realised I'd just got to keep writing, because obviously that's what you guys have got to do in your exams. So keep checking my timer, keep checking that how much time I've spent. And you can see that I'm ticking off things on my plan as well. And I mention this to all of my classes, but again, I think it's something worthwhile just putting in here. When you do a plan, whether you're doing it in media or you're doing it in a different subject, that is a working document. And what that means is that you're meant to go back to that plan repeatedly to tick off the things that you've done, so that you stay on track, you stay focused and you stick to the question, but also so that you can add anything if you need to as well. So in the time that I've got left at the end, as you'll see, I could potentially have gone back and added more to that plan and continued working on that question to hopefully give me a better shot at getting the full 25 marks. In each of these paragraphs, I'm trying to mention both the Quality Street advert and the Gucci Guilty advert. And as you read this through, when you get a copy of this at the end of the video or from the description link, you should see that each of those paragraphs sort of follows a very similar structure. So if I start off with Quality Street and then end my paragraph with Gucci Guilty, the following paragraph will start with Gucci and then we'll move on to Quality Street. So I'm sort of alternating it each paragraph. And I have got some sort of link between each of the paragraphs as well. They're not sort of standalone. So the first point that I made was about the sort of way that the men had been represented and positioned, and that lent itself quite nicely to then talking about sexualization of the men as well. So that then became my next paragraph. So it works that way, and I think when you do a plan, you can sort of see those links more clearly between each of the paragraphs and topics that you want to talk about. So I've used up nearly 35 minutes of my time. If you figure it as being sort of like a mark a minute, I've used nearly 35 minutes of my time. So section A for me is really where it takes a lot of time to get my answers down, and I'm working right up to the wire on section A. In terms of my timing, really I've only got about another 10 minutes left. So I probably want to have left 5 minutes at the end to check through section A. I wouldn't read through section A straight away. So when I finish section A, I wouldn't spend those 5 minutes reading through it. I'd leave that until the very end of the exam and then go back to section A, because that's when you're going to spot those errors and places you could add more detail. And this last paragraph really annoyed me as I was writing it, because I realised that major quality could be a male character that I could have spoken about, and I sort of just shoved him in at the end. So I probably should have gone back to that on reflection. Okay, so moving on to section B then. So I've saved about 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes spare from section A. Section B, as you can see, I'm rattling through these questions really quickly, mostly because the first two questions are single marks, and I've actually highlighted the marks in this section. I didn't do that in section A because there weren't as many steps to the questions, so I didn't feel like it was necessary. But here, I almost feel like it's crucial to highlight those marks for the questions so you can figure out how much you need to write, because they're not the same between industry and audience. So the ones that we've got for audience are different marks and different steps compared to the one at the top. And I'm just making quick notes underneath the final question. I figure because it's 12 marks, it should be about 3 paragraphs. So I've made sure that I've got 3 points there to mention, which means I'm aiming for about 3 paragraphs. But I feel, you can see in my handwriting and in the way that I'm working, I feel much more relaxed in this section than I did in A. And what this, I think, has really shown me, obviously because this is the first time that I've done this timed, is that actually for section B, you have more than enough time. You have more time than you need. So actually you could almost spend at least another 5 minutes, potentially another 10 minutes on section A compared to section B. Obviously it would depend what comes up. I think that my questions for the archers were quite difficult, whereas my questions for Spectre were probably very easy. And so it would depend on what comes up. Obviously, you've got to be comfortable with what you're talking about. But I genuinely think I could have spent another 10 minutes on section A. But you guys can tell me, because you're going to read through my answers, hopefully. So you'll be able to mark them, have a look at them, see what you think. Use them as part of your revision as well. So going back to my plan again, ticking off the bits that I've done, and I'll scan my planning for you guys as well, so you can see all the planning as well that I've done. This really didn't take as much time as section A. So yeah, so I'm down to, you can see that I'm going to have loads of time left over even here, because I'm down to 40 minutes.
and I've got about 20 marks to write, to answer. So yeah, I have got a lot of time left over at the end, as you can see already. Now my questions for film, I'm not sure that you will get film. I'm starting to think that you're unlikely to get film for audiences. That's what I'm starting to think. And the reason for that is that I was thinking this as I was writing it. Film has only been included on our specification in a marketing sense, and here my questions are almost asking you to analyse the film, which they won't do. They won't do that in your exam, because we've got to have a real distinguish between this and film studies. So that's partly why I think it was really quick and easy to answer these questions, but also made me think, actually, yeah, I don't know whether you will get film in audiences. Don't quote me on that and don't bank on it. Obviously still practice like I'm practicing here, but I'm not sure that you're going to get film in that audiences section, because I'm not entirely sure how they can test you on audiences. When you look at the SAMs, when you look at the sample assessment materials, the questions for film are in industry, and they ask you about the BBFC rating and all that sort of stuff. So they couldn't put that in audiences. Not sure. For this final question though, what is important is that it specifically states the uses and gratifications theory, and I'm using that theory for my planning. So you can see that my bullet points are the steps from the uses and gratifications theory. And that's a really crucial way of planning. If you get a question about the uses and gratifications theory, and I'm almost certain that you will because it's a named theory, use the steps of that theory to help you plan, because it can help you with your structure, and it's a surefire way then of including that in your answer. Because if you don't mention the uses and gratifications theory in a question that asks you to do so, you're not going to get many marks at all. You'll be capped at a really low band, just the same way as if you're asked to mention a particular source or a particular product in the context question of section A, you've got to make sure you mention it, otherwise you'll be capped. So yeah, that's important to remember. And I'm actually getting to the end of this answer now. So almost half an hour spare at this point. Which is quite reassuring, I guess, that you have that much time left at the end. Well, I suppose we'll get into that more in just a minute. And I am sorry that I'm rambling, but this is a really weird way of filming, and I've not done it this way before, so you're sort of getting my inner musings on my own process here. So this is my last paragraph, I think, my second to last paragraph. Second to last. So this is the last paragraph now. We're down to about 25 minutes left of our time. Still need to go back and check section A. Then obviously need to check section B as well. So maybe 10 minutes of that time would be spent, or at least 5 minutes of that time would be spent checking. Okay, and I'm done.
Okay, so I don't know whether you guys can see this, just ignore the message on my phone. I've actually got 22 minutes left, and I feel like I have answered this exam to the best of my ability. Now, obviously, there are going to be people out there who are saying, well, you're a media teacher, so you're bound to have a certain level of knowledge, and that's true to an extent, but I did also, as I said, make these questions up sort of 10-15 minutes before I started the video, and because this is a new specification, we've not got any sample answers, and so in a way I'm in a similar position to you guys. So hopefully that was useful for all of you. as I said, I'm really sorry that it's taken so long to get this video up, but it has taken me forever to film. I've literally not stopped other than going out for food earlier. But yeah, so hopefully you found this useful. Please subscribe, hit the box down below, and if you hit the little bell icon next to it, you get an instant notification every time I post a new video. They're not all going to take this long to get up online, thankfully. You can message me in the comment section down below. I do my best to respond to every single one of you, and you can also get in touch with me through Twitter at media_revision. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for hopefully a shorter, quicker video than today.